so many of my former and current students, so that's super exciting. So I'm sorry for all of my current students because I'm just going to repeat all of the things that you hear me say all the time anyways. Pat asked me, she gave me a whole list of things that we could kind of go over because I love tips and tricks, and so tips and tricks is like kind of where we're going to go. We wanted to start off on some hand building things and doing some pinch pots. So the first part that we want to, so I'm going to do pinch pots, kind of fruits and vegetables. And then kind of lead you into, I also do pinch pot like heads. So at Saddleback I teach both hand building wheel and architectural ceramics plus like foundations. It's all kind of the same like spiel. But we have 4 years worth of classes, which is pretty much a full-on college degree. And we fire the kilns. We do glaze chemistry. I relearned chemistry through ceramics. And we also do mold making. I'm looking at Ray because I'm like, I'm gonna remember all of her projects.
It's not a lot yet.
So many. But yeah, we teach it, and I definitely teach it as both a career and as a sustainable hobby because we all know how much money this takes. So, and it takes up a lot of space too, so getting stuff out there is also helpful. So I wanted to show you, the pinch pots, and then I'll actually color some of them too. What I forgot to bring, Pat, is underglazes.
Oh,
did we have any?
We can get them there in here.
Okay, cool. That was my one.
Take a minute to move the table and all.
Okay.
Oh wait, we can get some from the other cupboard. That's
Okay.
We'll do that whenever.
Just some really basic. Once I make a fruit, we'll like pick a thing. Then I wanted to move over into kind of combination of both wheel and hand building, and then go into just kind of wheel troubleshooting things. And I think we have like 3 hours, so I'm gonna try to
break in the middle.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to like separate it up into kind of 3 different hour-long chats. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Now, I have terrible time management, so I'm gonna like work on that as like a human being. And set a timer because can't remember things. Okay, we'll say like 50 minutes. Okay, cool, start. Okay, so I brought a couple of different clays. We're like cone 10 over at Saddleback, but I do teach people how to like transition over to cone 6, like work, and that's part of what we do with our glaze lectures, and that stuff is learning how to transfer those. But this is a big, which one is this one? This one's Rodsbod. I brought some big porcelain. The Rodsbod's a really nice clay body, like it's very similar to like Soldate, if you guys have worked with Soldate, but it has a speckle in it. I like this for hand building and sculptural work because it's very friendly. Okay, so I wanted to start off on making little pinch pots.
Laura, it's in 1 minute. Rodsbod is one of our clays. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is
just so you know.
Okay. Are you okay? So here I'll pass around some fruits and vegetables so you can like see some things. Here's my avocado, and then I have my what is this? A summer squash? Which squash is acorn squash?
That is so real. I thought it was.
Vegetables. Right. Here's my garlic.
It's so cute.
And then I brought some to paint as well, so I brought myself a little, I don't remember what these vegetable names are. They're just vegetables. I don't eat them. Here, I'll start over here. Do I have a request for a fruit and or vegetable?
Banana.
Pumpkin.
I told guys, if you don't, Bill is my favorite out of all of my ceramic instructors. I have been working in clay for now over 20 years, more than 20 years. 30. Oops, it was 30. Because I started in 94.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so you all can do math. Yeah. Started in 94 and I just was diehard. Bill couldn't keep me out of his class. He had to suffer through with me. So Bill votes pumpkin because, oh my gosh, pumpkin is where this project came from. So much of the stuff that I do is actually, I took it from Bill's class. Okay, so.
Keep your coffee if you want.
When I'm working on pinch pots, how many of you guys have worked on pinch pots and your pinch pot flattens out and it gets wider instead of, yeah. All right, so key features, table is not your friend. Your lap is your friend because it's nice, soft, and squishy. And as I'm working on it, I want to start off in the center and move my way out. So that way I can really feel the thickness of the walls as I'm going, but also I'm not touching this part. Because if I touch this part, then I'm in trouble because it starts to get wider, right? So just working in kind of a little round motion. When I'm doing sculptural things like a pinch pot or a head, then like a fruit or vegetable or a head or something like that, I tend to go for about a finger thickness. My favorite measuring device is my hands. That way I have a little bit of room to like play with stuff. And then I'll go and make the edge like kind of even. Now I would pass this around, but there's like a lot of you and I feel like it will take too long for me to get it back. But know that one of the things that I'm always looking for when you do this, and this is why you want to start from the center going out, is because as it gets bigger, it's a lot harder to feel that thickness on the inside, so the outside edge ends up getting really thin, right? Yes, we know the problems. So that's why we want to start from the center and work our way out, kind of like a coil, right? I had an opportunity this semester, or actually last, it's like October, to go to Mata Ortiz in Mexico, and actually sit and work with the like potters. It's in everybody's just kitchen, and so I got to go work with some master like potters, and there are these little ladies that are making pots this big, and then firing I have video. They're very tiny on my phone, but because I haven't gotten them off yet. Oh my gosh, she had the biggest bonfire too. As we watched them all fire their work and decorate the work, it was phenomenal. But it was also really interesting because you've seen their pots, right? They're gorgeous, they're perfect, and they're all super thin little pinch pot pieces. And a lot of time people are like, oh, I don't really like pinch pots because they just aren't like pretty. They always turn out lumpy or something like that. Yeah.
I see your motion. It seems like you push it from side to the bottom.
Yeah, so as I'm pushing it, it's not just this. It's this and around, right? To kind of just spread it out.
Is it sideways or
Yeah,
from top to
it's
bottom?
both down and sideways. It depends on which way I need the clay to go. So you can control the way that you want the clay to move based on how you push it, right? So if I want it to go a little bit like rounder, then I'm gonna push this way. If I need to push like up here, it's a little bit thicker and I wanna push some of that clay down. I'll move that around. But yeah, like the great thing, I love pinch pots for both the forms that you can make with it. Like it works really well as a sculptural thing, but it also works really well for even making your just straight up pottery. We can do everything with pinch pots. And it can be incredibly precise too. The trick is that there's multiple layers, because everything that you start off with in pinch pots is a lumpy potato, right? And that's a stage in what it is that we're making, is the lumpy potato stage. Okay, so I have 2 halves of my lumpy potato, right? I don't care what shape I'm gonna make, and what like vegetable, fruit, whatever. I still always start off with my 2 halves, and then we'll kind of rough that into place once we get there. Oh wow, I just got like really self-conscious. Am I gonna make a good enough pumpkin for Bill?
Bill has given pumpkin demos.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
maybe not a pumpkin.
Maybe something that's a little oddly shaped.
Okay, what's Bill? You got overruled.
Any vegetable is fine.
Any vegetable is
Yeah.
fine. What about fruits? Is that okay?
I can do fruit.
Right. And then is it mushrooms? So what's outside of pumpkins? What do we want, my friend?
That's garlic.
Garlic? You want to do a garlic?
No,
Okay, big
eggplant.
garlic. Eggplant.
That's a big garlic.
Hey, this is one of the things that I tell my students is I make them do a fruit or vegetable.
Eggplant sounds
Eggplant.
good.
Yeah, eggplant's a great plant. Okay, now I'm gonna need to. So I always try to pull up references because there's an artichoke. You are a mean person.
That's so weird.
Between artichokes and pineapples, or then the occasional like, what about a dragon fruit or a cactus? Laura, that's a fruit. In the interest of time, yeah, apples super. You know what I think is the apple, like sometimes people think that the apples are too simple. They're like, because people like, or even like orange, they're like, no, the orange is too simple. Oh my God, no. There's so much little like nuance, the entire point of the project. So, sorry, let me go back to this real quick. I did stitch this together. The key feature was for me to go back and forth really deep into this, right? We have to obliterate the memory of the clay in between these two pieces. Then I'm going back over with the back side of this and smoothing this out. And again, stitching it back and forth. I really think about it like in the terms of like sewing. Right, so hopefully, am I like high enough up for people to see? Okay, cool.
So do you go halfway?
Yeah, if not a little bit more. I mean, honestly, even if I popped a hole in this, doesn't matter. It's just clay. You move it around. It's wet hole.
The thickness you talked about was finger. Were those finger thickness?
Yeah. I was going for like about yay thickish. And then people are like, but everybody's fingers are different. Okay, yeah, sure. Pick your. We could go pinky thickness. We could go for this. I try not to go too much thicker than my thumb because that means that just in terms of how we're firing, I'm gonna blow stuff up. So I get my little lumpy potato going. Move some stuff over. Pretend you're a cat for a little bit. Okay, so we have eggplant and apple. Now, if I do an apple, I don't have to look it up because I've made an apple enough times. If I do an eggplant, I have to think about it for a hot second. Okay, so I just needed to roll it around a little. I'm still not to the point where I'm even going to worry about shaping this. This is a serrated rib. I love a serrated rib. This is a game-changing little thing. Because whenever you're trying to smooth something out, this is our go-to. Because have you guys ever tried to smooth something out and it gets like kind of that, it looks like cellulose, like that. We've been trying to sculpt this out of our bodies forever. If I could use this on my body, this would be great. But if I go back over and I do this little back and forth thing.
Use the flat side.
No, the serrated side. And I want to go back and forth. This is like one of my favorite tools, especially if we need to make things super smooth, like if we want to burnish it or something like that. Then I'm going to go back on, and instead of using, so where people go wrong is they do this sort of thing where they try to scrape over the surface. No. We want to use the flat side of this, right? So we're using not the edge, but the flat side. Ew. Hello, smoothness. Where have you been my whole life? Right, now we are getting into smooth potato territory. All right, Bill, I have your first assignment. It is to find me a picture of an eggplant. Bill. We need
have the internet when you started?
It was just starting.
Yeah, I think it was.
It was just starting. I think, like my generation. Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. I need
On this
like,
one.
yeah, that's the perfect image. I have it in my vision. Yeah, because I don't know if you guys have like projectors and stuff. Okay, I'm good.
Keep it here.
I'm good. I'm good. We're gonna do this. Eggplant, because I haven't done an eggplant, which means that we should definitely make an eggplant.
How do you gonna keep them purple?
Right, that's our tricky part, the purple.
That'd be hard to mix.
Right, well, so you know what I really love? I love my underglazes, and it also really depends on the firing temperature that we're going to. So if I really wanted to get that good purple, now the eggplant purple though is like a nice deep purple. So I feel like I could get that done actually pretty well at a cone 10 or a cone 6 with the underglaze. And I would use a blend. I don't use just one color, guys. It's not one color. These things aren't one color. They all have kind of depth to their color, right? So we have to create that depth. And we can do that. I love underglazes for that kind of painting element.
So you're not worried about the form at this point, you just make it smooth.
Just gotta get it smooth. All right, this is stage 1 potato phase. Okay, cool. We got this. Now, this is a nice little ceramic bomb, in that if I put this into the kiln, it's going to cause some problems. Also, if I don't eventually poke a hole in this, that'll also cause some problems. But right now, this is my best friend because it's keeping this in its appropriate form. Okay, then we'll think eggplant thoughts. And you can see how you can totally change the shape of it, right? Like the clay when it's nice and soft like this. And this is what's so great about having the that air pocket in there. You know what? It's like this eggplant is just the reverse shape of the bell pepper or chili pepper, whatever it is that I had over there. This is gonna be a good eggplant, guys. Okay, and notice, have I used any water?
No,
Have I set this down at all?
no.
Like just the ones to roll around on the table, but other than that, no, because that doesn't do us any favors. And I watch so many people just set their stuff down, and then they'll be kind of rough, and it goes boom, boom. No, people.
Even with the air pocket, it will flatten out.
Yeah, this is still feel how squishy it is.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so it's got a lot of, and I'll pass it around once I'm kind of done with it. People mistakenly think that water is the thing that's going to smooth your stuff out. It's not the thing that's going to smooth your stuff out. Water breaks down clay. Hello! Water breaks down clay, and so if you add water to it, what you're going to do is you're going to take away the finer stuff, and you're going to leave the grittier bits left behind. How many times have you used water and it turned into a sandier mess as opposed to a smoother mess, right? So a little bit of water, great. But there's already plenty of water at this stage. There's already plenty of water in the clay. So I don't really need to add water at any point. I also, I don't add slip to things. I make slip on my piece so that I can really embed the slip into the clay.
What's the weight of that piece that you're now holding?
some pounds. Let's see. This feels like 4 to 5 pounds.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely didn't do it like, I wasn't trying to go light on this, because we went with that thicker, right, thing. And a fruit, I'm not really worried about like, oh, is this too heavy to drink out of? Like it's a sculpture. Okay, so I'm gonna set it down. Now, if you have the luxury, set this down on like a pillow or something like that instead of setting it down directly on the table, right? No, I'm okay. I'm not leaving it here. If I left it here, if I was gonna set it up to dry, I'd wanna have it on a little bit of a cushion. Okay, let's talk leaves, my friends. Okay, so where people go drastically wrong with leaves is they make this little slab, and then they cut it out like a cookie cutter, yeah? And then lo and behold, the edge of the leaf has, my tools, they'll do like, I don't know, this is the leaf, right? And then it's like beefy. This is exaggerated, but you know, oh, thank you. Look at that. I don't have to, because see, look, that already flattened out, that little side. Ah, so nice. Okay, so, yeah, this is the quality of some of the leaves I've seen. But generally what I want to do is I actually want to, the key thing for, okay, big trick. People assume that the edge indicates the thickness of the whole thing. Okay, so you can trick people by making the edges thin. The whole thing doesn't need to be thin because we know how easy that's going to break off or whatever, right? So we're going to make this nice and thin. So I have it like roughly the shape that I want it to be, leafish. And then I'm going to put it in the palm, the heels of my hand, right on the very edge here. Squish those edges. So now you can avoid those cookie cutter little leaves. And then the thickness in between gives you some stability. And I was trying to remember which side this goes on. Right? Yeah. But that way I can have, like, that's quite a different look than if I went with the cookie cutter version, right? Where it just feels beefy.
So you don't put slip on at all?
This one, oh my gosh, we are just wet. Like there, if I were, the drier your clay gets, the more we need to add water in between. But as is right now, this is just got, I'm still taking away moisture, not adding moisture. Now, if you get to a point where it starts to get stiffer, where we start to hit like a leather hard consistency, yeah, that's when I need to add, what I'll do is I'll do water, I do water scratch, water scratch, water scratch. Meaning I'll take my little scoring tool, scratch it up, fill it with water, scratch it again until I build up a slip with the clay that's already there, and that also is helping embed the slip into the clay. So that's my favorite as opposed to adding stuff on, because I cannot tell you how many times I've seen like a little dot or a little like thing that got attached to something with just a little water. You can see there's like 5 scratch marks. There's a glob of a different color clay for a slip, and then there's your piece on the floor. Right? How many times? So that, I've had much better luck building my slip on my forms than I have adding my slip into it. Now sometimes people like to add, you know, vinegar and that sort of stuff, which by all means, or you have like a paper clay, you've done cellulose fibers like in there. And those are all good, helpful like things, and it really depends on what you're doing and what you need to have happen. But yeah, that just scoring and slipping on the piece and creating the slip on the work has worked out really well for me. I'm really excited about these little leaves. I think that they're looking cute. I really like the shadow that it's creating. right? It's all about these little like nuances. It's not that you're trying to create these like perfect things. It's that you're trying to find the essence. Like, what is it that makes the orange look like an orange? Kind of stuff. Okay, cool. Make these little dudes. And then in terms of coloring and stuff, I typically, for the colors, I put the colors on, unless I have to, I put them on the bisqueware, which is why I bought the bisqueware pieces. Sometimes I want to use the underglazes on greenware. Reasons why I would put it on greenware versus on putting it on a bisqueware. Blending. Okay, how many of us are painters? How many painters do I have in here? Okay, I've got a handful of painters. So putting it onto bisque versus putting it onto greenware is like the difference between acrylics and oils, right? So oils, they take forever to dry, right? But they're really good for blending. So if you want to do some really nice blending with your underglazes and stuff, it works out way easier on your wet clay, on your greenware. And if you do it on the bisqueware, it dries really quickly, right? And it's easier to get thick coats and stuff. So typically that's kind of how I like to go. But if you're looking for some really good blending skills, then I would do that on greenware. If you guys noticed on the little acorn squash passing around, it has a little bit of a texture to it. It's not like a really perfect blend, but I was already happy with that. Like this goes with my vibe. Yeah, I don't know where it went.
They're back here. I put them all back here.
Okay, yeah, there's an acorn squash back there. Here, if you want to bring them back, if you wouldn't mind bringing them back up here. I put that on bisque.
Okay.
I did it on bisque, and you can see with the acorn squash, you can see some of the blending a little bit, and I do it with sponges.
Where is the acorn squash?
Here it is.
We didn't get to see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys can see though, even what I'm talking about, like there's kind of transitions and stuff, which again, I was voting that was my plus, guys. Highly technical. Oh shoot, do I want it here? I want it here. Okay, and then it had that little stem. It's not me. Oh yeah, good. I know, that's my, oh my gosh, you guys, that's my morning alarm. It gave me all sorts of panic. Right. Do I have pants on? No, where he is. I'm just excited when it's not me. Okay, I feel pretty good about this. You should never forget the last, there's the last 5 minutes. And you can just put 5 more minutes into looking, and the rest of the time I'm like, guys, do not let perfectionism be the enemy of success. But right before you finish your pot, the thing you want to do is spend just 5 minutes looking for all the places that you accidentally gouged, where you're like, oh yeah, I should probably put my name on it. Just to smooth that out. Again, guys, how much water did I use?
Zero.
Yeah. Because there's plenty of water in this shape. Okay, now I always make my students put names on it, and then people are like, but I don't mess it up, right? So let's be creative about, like, this is a creative challenge. This is not a forced, like, ugliness. So one of the things that I will tell my students to do is to actually make a little label, you know, like you're in the vegetable store. I don't know, there's a grocery store, whatever, vegetable store, it's fine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a little tiny coil. I'm gonna put that right down here. And so instead of me making a little flat disc, because I don't want it to actually be additional like weight, I just want to see a little border. So I'm gonna push that down. It does take practice.
How many years?
30.
How many of us in this room have 30 years besides Laura?
I mean, I think they're just little, it's like little tiny things where you're not, I didn't add a full like disc. I just am slowly pushing that out, right? And then that's where I put my little, just light taps to push it down, right? But then there's my little label, and I can put a little stamp, I can paint my little design, I can put a barcode on it, whatever. Okay, do we want to pass it around? Do you want to just like stare at it? I won't be able to color this one. I brought other ones to color. Yeah. I do, but right now, oh my gosh, it would deflate. I'm counting on that air to keep this afloat. Okay, so there's our little line. It would also pop itself apart, right? Because the clay shrinks, but the air does not. So a lot of pressure.
So you do the whole.
Wherever it seems most convenient.
When?
As soon as it's leather hard. If I could pick it up and it wouldn't be just like kind of a squishy thing, guys. So yeah.
Just specify, put any side.
Yeah, any side down. Doesn't really matter. Now, if I have this conversation with a lot of people about like, oh, I want to glaze all of the things. And you can't glaze all of the things. And you're like, but Laura, there's all these examples of, yeah, I know. They just were really good at hiding the places where it touched, right? And so working that into your design is a key part of like the feature, right? You can glaze the bottoms of your pots, but you have to have some point where they're going to be able to touch, right? So you either work that into the design so you can't tell, and then people are like, oh, it's so lovely and it's all glazed. But they don't see the fact that there was actually a considerable amount of detail put into the fact to make you not notice that there were unglazed sections, right? Yeah?
Are your fruits underglazed, one cone 6 firing and then another firing after that, or just?
We always do, so for, in the school setting, it's always a bisque first. It is not, bisquing isn't required. Like you can totally do one-time firings, and when I'm at home, I do one-time firings where I will do it's all, the bisque and the glaze is all one go. But your firings have to be set up to do that, right? And that's, in a school environment, that's a bad idea. Because there's just too many people that do not, they made it too thick, like, they didn't poke a hole in it, like, I don't know, it's not well compressed. I don't know, people make all sorts of, they're like little mini traps for lab techs to pick up and feel bad about. Whoever the poor soul that has to like glaze the stuff.
Can we see your motion?
Yeah. Like, so you can kind of see that there's a little bit of a spiral, and right now I'm pressing down and around. Here, we'll do it for our video. And really what I'm feeling right now is I'm paying so much attention right to this little space, right? And I'm rounding it around, and as I'm going in, I can even pull this, like, because I didn't even bother making this into a nice ball beforehand.
So you're not trying to keep it as close as the other?
No, I mean, I definitely am, I want it to be, I need it to line up with this guy. And you notice when I set it down, I did not set it down this way, I set it down this way.
So let me go back to my fruits and
Yeah.
vegetables. The acorn had only one firing?
The acorn had a bisque firing, and then I fired it to cone 10.
Okay, thank you.
So I, depending on the color that I'm looking for, and also the durability that I need, I will choose between my cone 10, my cone 6, or my 06 firing. Because it's not so much that one thing's like better than the other. It's more along the lines of that we need to pick out what our most important bits are, right? So especially like not putting a glaze on a piece, especially something that's not going to be eaten off of, that's not going in the microwave in the dishwasher. Oh my gosh, do whatever you want. Like that, it doesn't matter nearly as much.
So it's okay to put underglaze and it doesn't stick to
Yeah,
the tip?
yeah, because it's more like a slip. It's not, an underglaze is not a glaze.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Is the underglaze for coloring?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Underglaze is great for coloring. So the way that I kind of talk about it with people is we have kind of two ways that we're getting color in our work, right? We're getting it through oxides, so all those glazes that you're like, I don't know what color this is going to turn. It is not the color that it looks like, right? Those are straight up oxides. But then we have glazes like stroking coats and like the commercial glazes where they look like the color they're going to turn, right? And so like, why do we have the ones that look like the color they're going to turn, and then we have these other ones that are just chaos, right? That's because you have the ones that look like the color they're going to turn are using stains, okay? And all stains are oxides that have gone through a chemical reaction, so they've gone through a chemical process and have turned the color that the chemical process pushed it into, right? So if I'm working with oxides, the color can change depending on what atmosphere I put it in. If I'm working with stains, hold on, I lost my stick. If I'm working with stains work a little bit more like color theory. Oxides do not work with color theory. You guys understand what I mean with that? Like we can combine some colors together and then it'll actually, like yellow and red will actually make orange, right? That is not what happens if we took our glazes with our oxides. You don't magically put those two together and it makes orange. It makes some other new color. So anytime I'm trying to do something like kind of sculpture and I'm really trying to control that color, I like to work more with the stains. And that also means that I tend to work a little bit more in oxidation versus reduction, right? Stitch.
So you're saying the stains, we want oxidation?
Yeah, with stains, oxidation. Oxides, it depends on what you're gonna do. It depends on what you want. Especially if you're dealing with like coppers or irons. The coppers and irons are our most reactive of our colorants. And so if you see something that has a copper or an iron in it, oh my gosh, it cares whether or not you put in oxidation or reduction.
So how do you decide if you want to use stain instead of underglaze?
So stains color underglaze. Stains can, so typically we're thinking about like kind of mason stains. Stains can go into our clay bodies, stains can go into our slips, stains can go into our glazes. Stains have to be combined with something in order to in order to melt down. Otherwise, they just be a powder, right? They've already gone through their like thing. So we need to combine it with something. So if you're looking at something and it looks like something like the color it's going to turn, maybe it's a lighter version of that, but still looks like the color it's going to turn, then that will, that means that it's most likely colored with stains and not oxides. Does that make sense? That's a really important thing, like when you're trying to figure out, like, well, what kind of firing do I, because do you guys have options? Do you have oxidation or reduction, or just reduction?
No, we have
Oh.
Oxidation. Is it just oxidation, or it's oxidation and
Or
reduction?
reduction.
Both. Right.
Both.
So when you're choosing whether or not you're doing oxidation or reduction, one of my first things that I'm thinking about is that is there a stain involved? If there's a stain involved and I want to maintain that color, then I'm going to have much better luck in oxidation than I will in reduction. If I'm working with an oxide, it depends. It depends on what I want that oxide to do. Because like, so celadon, that beautiful green like color, that's coming from red iron, right? But red iron in a reduction atmosphere turns green. Crazy. So, and then even like kind of your combinations, all of that sort of stuff. Just like copper can turn like 20 different colors, but it depends again on the atmosphere and the timing that you're using it, right? So those are your oxides, and so oxides are chaos. Oxides like just really haven't figured out what's going on with their life yet. They're like in the puberty stage, right? Mason Saints have gone through puberty. They're like, I am red now. Okay, so just like with our vegetable, we just start off with like basic form. I'm gonna do the most generic head possible because I think I can do it in 20 minutes. All right, so lumpy potato, stage 1, complete.
Put some ears on.
Right? I'll just roll this around a little bit. Again, most important part, guys, this versus this. Right? This, like that just scraped everything, right? But if I use the side, oh, beautiful. Because that's this is smooth, this is smooth.
Why do I see them using an upside down glass on it? At what stage?
Upside down glass.
Where the mouth is.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that recently. So if you want to make something really round, it's like, I think that people are doing it as like meditative workshops because this is where we're at in our lives now, where you can go and make the roundest thing ever. And basically something with it's kind of like a form of burnishing, but they take a really perfectly round form and then they rub it over the top, and that'll make your shape, not only will it smooth it out, it will also make it round. And it'll make it like perfect round. So if one needed a meditative activity. Okay, let's talk about head proportions. So I always base it, you don't magically have a skull here. I should have brought a skull.
It's in the cabinet, right?
Yeah, where do you keep your skeletons?
We have pictures.
We have pictures, okay. We can do pictures. But okay, so basic, we'll use my head and I'll pretend like I remember what my face looks like. Okay, so middle, I always use the middle of my nose as my first thing. So I'm gonna divide it from here. Look at that, that's like the same. And then that's the same. Oh, look, there's thirds, okay? The halfway point is in the middle of that third. Your eyeballs sit right above the top part of that third. If anybody's like, oh my God, go slower. I do have all of my videos online for free. And I have this particular demo set up in little like 15, 20-minute segments of each little part. So if you want more detail and you're like, please Laura, slow down, you can have me on your beck and call. And you can just adjust the speed and even delete my voice.
Where do we find that?
That's on YouTube. Just look for Laura Haight. It'll be a purple L. I made a mistake and I built it underneath my school account, so now I can't monetize it. But also, it wouldn't let me choose yellow as my color, which I think is rude. Okay. So other proportions. Your head. Oh, did I bring calipers? I did. I kind of brought calipers. I brought these ones. So your head, in terms of like this space, turns out it's this space, right? So this distance here is the same as this distance here, right? If I can move these things right. So, and also your head, I swear to God, I did my haircut like this so that you can see the back part of my head. Your head is oval from this perspective, yeah? Right? Not a circle. So, I almost picked that one up and started hitting it. So, I'm gonna work on making this now a little bit longer. Just feed it into shape. See, the only time I'm using the table is when I actually just want to use the table as a paddle, right? The table is a tool, and the table does excellent table-shaped flat marks on things. So if you didn't want a table-shaped flat mark on a thing, don't set it down on the table. Okay, we're already looking a little more like a head, right? Now, so things that I'm looking for. So I'm looking for some depth in my head. I am looking for my halfway point, so like this here, my head starts to go in. For everybody over here, oh look, I can look at my head. So this part here starts to go in and back, right? It's going across to the front. This is my middle point, goes all the way around, goes through my ears, right? So I want to divide this up into some sections. So first I'll do quarters. I'm looking for halfway point from the top to the bottom here. Yeah, that's looking like kind of a line. So there's my like kind of starting point. I'm going to do some more over here, so this way I know where my, oops. That way I know where my ear is going. So this is where my ears are going. Okay. Now I need to divide this into thirds. Again, using my hands, because hands are such, guys, if you haven't done this already, go measure all of your body parts on your hand. But that way, because you always have this, hopefully. So I got a third, I have a third, and then I have a third, right? So this is where my eyeballs are gonna go. Right, there they are. And then you're gonna start to look like Iron Man. Right, that's my head, or my little eyeballs. So the eyeballs fill, like if we divide this third into half, the eyeballs fill that from the bottom half, or they fill the top half of the middle third. We got there. Okay? And you want to go all the way out to the side, right? If we look at a profile view, this does not come out further. So I see a lot of times where people go wrong when they're making heads is they make their head looking at it like this, flat, okay? For the most part, I'm gonna work on it from the side, and I'm gonna work on it upside down. Not because I'm trying to be kind to you. I let you think that. But it's actually because if I, by distorting the way that I see the head, I stop thinking about me knowing what a head looks like, right? The story that we tell about heads is drastically different than actually paying attention to what is going on with people's body features, right? So, just grab some clay. I'll sit over here with you guys. Okay.
When you make the eye sculpting, are you pushing?
I
or
just
you
like pushed
straight
down
up?
and pulled out.
Okay.
So I did,
Both
it's a little bit of a gouging. So if you have any hidden rage, this is gonna, this is great. You get to hit heads, you get to gouge out eyes, stab things. I'm not violent. Okay, then we're gonna look a little bit like Squidward. And I think one of the trickiest parts when you're doing this, because I say all these things about like, oh yeah, it looks like Squidward, blah, 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 because we can't help it. We love to put stories to this. The hard part is we end up putting stories that are not helpful to it, like, oh, I'm not good at this, or this is ugly. You have to remember that everything has an ugly potato stage, and you've got to let it go through that stage. Okay, and I think I'll have enough time to work on like one side. I don't have time to work on both sides. So that's okay, we can see where we've come from. I'll make that nose just a little bit wider. Okay, the other thing that I think is really important when I'm looking at faces and heads and stuff is there's triangles. We have 3 triangles on our face. Triangle that we all can kind of see is breezy, this one, right? And it goes out and then it's coming out to our mouth, right? And it's lined up in the middle of our eyes, right? Then these are the other 2 triangles, right? So we want to, so when I'm working on this, I really want to, I've now kind of established this triangle, right? But now I want to work on this triangle. So I'm gonna add a little cheeky action. And I definitely go into the philosophy of like, just put a lot on and then you can take it off. Go heavy, and then soften. Okay, and you can see how much that starts to create both the cheekbone. It's now, when I'm looking at it from that like top view, I'm starting to see a little bit more of that ridge. So the square that I want there versus the U that I want with the mouth. Smooth that into the nose because it's not nose and then cheek. The cheek is like connected to the nose, that muscle. I think it's really helpful if you're into doing kind of sculptural work is look at some of those muscle anatomy books so that you really have, I mean, I don't know if this sounds silly, but I think muscle thoughts. I try to really like envision like how, as I'm pulling and pulling the clay and smoothing it out, I'm trying to go in the direction that the muscle would actually be connected. And that gives it a little bit more kind of nuance. There's one down here. How did I lose it so good? I know. Okay, I don't know what I did with the other one. We're in trouble now, guys. Okay, let's do eyeball. Eyeballs are the ones that I have the hardest time on.
Can you hold that up so we can see?
Down. You want to go down that way? Right? Again, working on it upside down. Whenever I see my students working on their heads right side up, I'm like that. And then they're working on the table. Guess what happens? It all just starts to flatten out and get wider and rounder. Right? And it starts to, you lose all of the dimension. So how often have I set this down? Yeah, don't. You set it down in your lap, that's all you get. Okay. I'm gonna smooth out that top brow. And then in terms of like making the eyes, it's kind of like this sort of decision of like what, I think there's more difference in age. Because it's just a question, okay, we're like 2 seconds. It's just a question of, are we looking for kind of, do we want this to have a little bit more of a cavernous-like thing? Are we looking for it to be a little bit more plush? Right? Is this a tired one? Are we gonna get some little bags underneath there? Are we gonna smooth it out? Guys, the glory of sculpting is you can decide what age you are.
Oh, I love that.
Right? And you're like, hey, I would like to look a little plump today. Okay, so how to pick out your eyeball size. Eyeballs do not stick out in front of your nose. If they do, I'm concerned for you. And maybe we should check that out. So I definitely want, I will, this is also the thing that I have the tendency to rip out the most, even when I'm making my even when I'm trying to just be smart and like do it right the first time. Eyeballs, ripping out eyeballs is like my pastime. Okay, this is feeling a little bit better, like in terms of that thing, but it's actually kind of right where I want it to be, and I need it to be a little bit further back because I also have to put the eyelids on it, right? And so I don't want my eyelids to come out in front of that. So I think I'm just gonna make this a little bit deeper. Right?
What's the risk of poking through that when you're doing that?
I mean, even if I do, so what? It's just clay. You just put more clay there.
Okay.
So it's not a problem.
Okay.
Put more clay by the backing or the eyeball?
Doesn't matter. Just
Oh, it was.
it does. Like you just need to fill the hole. However you want to fill the hole, totally works. Okay. Okay, that feels good.
Can we see it on this side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm again looking for what that looks like in terms of profile. I work way more from profile than I do from it straight on. Straight on doesn't give me the right information. Profile gives me really good information. And it also jumps over the part where I think I know what I'm doing, right? So also now I put this little eyeball in, and the whole point of this eyeball was to not be the whole eyeball, but to be the front, like facing part of it. So now as I go to push it in, I want to push back and forth with my thumb to round it over. So just like duck lips is a problem, football eyes is a problem. Have you guys ever sculpted your eyes? And then what people end up doing is they end up trying to create space in between the eyelid and the eyeball. And then they also end up carving out the eyeball so it ends up looking like this little football that's pointy. Right? We don't have pointy eyeballs. We have to remember that the eyelids are flesh that's just laying on top of the eyeball. Okay. So, if I'm smart, I remember to do the bottom eyelid first. Today I'm smart. Sometimes if I'm going stylized, I don't even do a bottom eyelid. Or I forgot. And I say I meant to not do a bottom eyelid. So I'm just going to do a little taper like this. Put that along the base. Right, rotate.
I think I'm seeing the secret is to have clay fresh out of the bag.
Yes, that's definitely helpful, working with like kind of the softer clay. I also think that like not overthinking it too much is helpful. Okay, and I just smoothed out one side of it. I'm really trying to preserve that inside line because then I don't have to touch anything, and then that curve is like, ugh, that's everything as I wanted. Right? And then I just try real careful like to make sure that I have all of my adjustments become really soft. Okay, then we do eyelid, top eyelid. Top eyelid I'll go just a little bit thicker with more clay than what I need, right? So it's gonna go taper, taper, taper to this like big old chunk.
It's a big chunk.
Right? I'm gonna go smoother progression. Right? So that's what I got going on. Okay, and then I'm gonna just pinch that bit back and off. I really wish I had my other thing. We'll use this one. Oh, there it is. What? Oh, I needed this. Because I want to poke that guy in. And then drag this up. So as I push down, that's creating that interior, like kind of line. And then if you wanted to do kind of stylized, because we're not going to make eyelashes on this because we're not crazy. But I can make a little flare over on the edge, and then that looks like eyelashes, right? I'll pick my nose just a little. Go over here, establish this little edge.
Nice towel.
I know, they're the best. This is like, that's what jeans are for. All right. Close, but not exactly. And ears, oh my gosh, you guys, I fudge ears. All ears are the same height as your nose, and they just go off over to the side. That connection point is literally like right, like the top part of where you should connect it is literally right there. We see it all the time with our glasses. So right at the corner of the eye is like kind of where the top of your ear should connect. And then the other thing where people go wrong with the ears is that they don't smooth out the front. They make it again with that cookie cutter thing where all of a sudden there's a step up and then your ear happens. So just making sure that you blend that in is like really helpful. Okay, so again, I have videos of all of this like in close-up detail, so you can watch online if you want to check it out. Laura Haight, it's the purple L.
Do you
We'll send out
making symmetrical?
Oh yeah, you know what I do really mean to my students is I will always do one half of it for them. I'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. Let me show you all the things that you can fix. And then they have to do the other half, and they thought that that was like a gift. It's not. So when I do eyes, I try to do both eyes at the same time because that makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, it's as long as I go back and forth from this to this, and then I'll try to make sure that it's the very end. I'll go back and do both of them, like make sure that they kind of even out, right? But here I'll pass this around. You guys always get it first, so I'm going to stick to that. Okay, so I did want to show you guys a little bit about kind of the blending and stuff on this. I'm going to set my timer again because I want to we'll do some painting of this one, and then I want to show you guys, these are all slab, both slab and prone. It's a combination of techniques. Okay, I really like kind of the slab combination. This was also slab and then altered on the wheel. And I also brought a couple of different things in terms of marbleizing, right? Because there's lots of different ways that we can go about marbleizing and coloring our clay. So this one, I used stains. I colored my clay, and I mixed it all up, cut it into a slab, and then the cross section of the slab gave me that sort of like agate ware kind of look, right? This one, I threw on the wheel, and it was two different clay bodies. So this actually has no glaze. This came out of our soda kiln. This is no glaze. This is just the raw clay in the soda kiln. But it was two different colors of clay, right? So you get some really nice like transitions for that one. This one I actually did with one of the emeritus classes over the summer, because we'll generally pick a technique that we want to do along with all of our standard sort of like cup, bowl, plate, whatever you make. And that semester it was Narikomi, or really just marbleizing, but marbleizing more complicated. And so this was both slab and throne, but all of this was again colored clay that we turned into a slab piece first and then put onto the.
Is that glaze?
Just a clear glaze. This is another one that is a slab piece, and the colors are coming just from the clay. Just 2 slabs, super simple. Another marbling, like both of these are marbling, but you kind of see the difference between kind of our basic sort of marbling when you throw it on the wheel versus marbling. This is a very light marbling, let's show you this one. Versus marbling and cutting it up in the slab, right? You get a different look, okay? Okay. I'm gonna give myself like 10 minutes. So let's talk about glazing things. Again, I told you this is because this is not like sculptural, and I do want, like this one, so watermelon. Oh my gosh, watermelon, this is gonna be glossy, right? And then this is gonna be matte because watermelons aren't glossy on the outside. So perfect opportunity now that because I can do my underglaze here, it can set on it, and then this part I can actually go back and add a gloss on top of it, right?
You talk about how you structured that wedge.
How I structure, hit it.
Oh.
You just beat it. And when I'm looking to get really clean lines, like I got it pretty close while it was soft, and then once it's set up to be leather hard, then I went back and I shaved it down a little bit to get that cleaner edge, right? So anytime I want really clean, crisp lines, I'm gonna wait until I get to the leather hard stage. And when I'm looking, but when I'm starting, it's just blocking out the form. I just need to get clay where it needs to be, but I don't necessarily need it to be in its prettiest state. Does that make sense? I think the most interesting part about this like little watermelon is actually gonna be the fade over on the side. So let's work on that.
Now, what are these glazes?
These are the underglazes, right? And I do, especially when it comes to my like fruits and vegetables, I love my underglazes. I like them more than my other like regular glazes. I'm also not a super big fan of glossy because glossy just makes it so that you can't see the color underneath it.
So Laura is using Amico velvet underglazes, which are among the underglazes we provide in this cabinet over here. We provide them in smaller containers, that's all.
Very mixed or bought that way.
They're bought that way.
And did you say the oxidation is?
Yeah, so this one is oxidation. I think in terms of the colors that I'm using, so the only colors that don't really like to go to Cone 10 is the like yellows and the purples. Like, they have feelings. So those are the ones that I might decide that I want to actually go to a lower temperature. But I really like the underglazes at the Cone 10 without anything on it because they do flux out a little bit, so they get like this light sheen to it. Okay, so there's our like, I had a thing of water. Okay. So there's my first like level. Now, I'm gonna do some white, because basically like if we're thinking about our watermelon, it's not just like solid like lines. I want it to be more realistic, so I need a little bit of a blend to happen. So I'm gonna pour just the tiniest amount out onto the table because I'm not wasteful.
What's your clay?
This clay is, I think it's my recycled clay, which means that it looks an awful lot like Rod Spot.
Now, are you doing it on bisqueware or?
I am doing it on bisqueware.
Okay.
Okay, and now what I want to do is I'm going to start using a sponge. Now, if you have those, if you have the sponges that are like the sea, like cucumber sponges, those ones are great because they also provide texture to what it is that you're doing. So I got my sponge just a little bit wet, and now I'm going to go through, I'm going to dab, 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 dab. Because the red is a lot stronger. Just the essence, you just need an essence of red. The red is a lot stronger than the white, right? So I'm gonna get a couple of coats of little like white going on there, and I'm trying to be a little bit messy right along the edge here. Okay, now I'm gonna start mixing in a little bit of my red. I'm gonna mix that with the white. And it's okay, I'm like, oops. It's okay if you say oops. Like, think Bob Ross, like, happy trees. Happy accidents, it's all fine, everything's fine. You're fine, this is fine, none of this matters. We're doing this for fun.
You sound like my therapist.
You know what? I do feel like therapy and ceramics do go together quite well. And then I'm even blending in that white into the red. And I want to pull that red back out a little bit. Yeah. Ooh, blending. I love it when you guys participate in the sound effects with me. I want to do a little bit, and I, especially with the underglazes, I want to do like kind of, this is where I say oops, and then I say it's fine, everything's fine. I want to do it in kind of layers, right? Keeping in mind that my lighter colors aren't as strong. So I want it to look, I want everything to look a little bit, it's gonna look lighter than what it's gonna turn right now. It's going to be much darker once we fire it, okay? So everything's gonna become much deeper in color. Depending on what temperature you fire it to, you could lessen that effect. Like we could just bisque fire it and it's not gonna look too much different from what it is now, right? But I could fire it to 6 and I could get like kind of a medium tone, or I could fire it to 10 and I could get a darker tone. When in doubt, you just fire to 6, and then if you don't like it, fire it to 10. And you can also go back and add more like kind of layers and stuff.
Is it an oxidation or reduction?
So back to my statement earlier, what was I saying about like, what are these colored with, oxides or stains? Stains. Right, and stains are gonna do better in which firing, oxidation or reduction? Oxidation.
We all passed the test.
Yeah, guys, like we're doing great.
We can go to high school next week.
Oh.
You know, I think this, every time we put something in the kiln, we are risking its little life. And so depending on how paranoid you are and whether or not you need to deliver it tomorrow, we might, I mean, I don't really worry about it, especially if there isn't already a crack. Like, so if a crack didn't show up in the bisque, this is part of why bisquing is really helpful, is that it weeds out the weak. So the stuff, if your stuff comes out of bisque and it has a crack, just let it go. Just let it go. Like that crack is most likely not getting better. Now if it's sculptural, okay, let's glaze it, it'll be fine, right? But when it's pottery, I'm like, oh my gosh, we could just stop now, and you could go make a new piece way faster than you could repair whatever nonsense it is that you're trying to fix. Back with my white again. Get another coat. Okay, because I want to get like, if I can get like 3 coats on there, that's gonna be good. Okay, back with my red. Wait, do I want to do green first? I want to do green first. Okay, now my green's coming from like this side, so I'm gonna hit it from the edge. Yes, this is everything that I always wanted in my life. And worst case scenario, my friends, it's not working out. Washing it is great.
Off of greenware?
Off of bisqueware.
Oh, this.
Yeah. Greenware is a little bit more like questionable. Yeah, I'm feeling real good about that edge.
Do you ever put seeds in your watermelon?
I am gonna put seeds in my watermelon. Cause what fun is it if you don't have seeds to spit at people? Okay, back to my blending down here again. Oh, look at me, I'm doing great. Everything's fine. I always do the blending first, and then the details. So I went back and just got just my straight up red. Red. So I was playing with a little bit of red and white. Now I'm just going with just the red, so I can kind of blend that a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Now I can go and take this guy, and I'm just gonna paint my little seeds on this. Then I'm done. And then I made a watermelon.
Have you made seed impressions in the watermelon first?
Yeah, I made kind of a little bit of a dent, and then I kind of wanted to play around with creating a little bit of shading right there, where I'm going to add some black, so it'll look a little more like translucent. Gotta find a clean finger. So I'm putting a little bit of the black on the top part of that bit. And then I'll go back. Problem, what problem? There's no problem. Okay. So I'll pass that around. You can kind of see how it's going with it. Yay.
I don't think the wheels on that.
What is that? Somebody asked what that was.
Oh, this is bat mat. I love my bat mat because I hate putting clay down and trying to struggle with the bat. Everything I do is based off of laziness, my friends. It's like a chamois. It's just a chamois. So you can go to like Home Depot and just buy a chamois and cut a circle, and it's great. This is also great when I'm putting things on here to like, if I'm trimming something that's low and wide. I really like that one. So it's just a handy little thing.
Laura, can I just make a quick statement?
Yeah.
For those of you who have signed up for my class for the beginner wheel, just take note of what Laura's doing, because I'm gonna enhance even a little bit more on a slower scale basis of what she's doing, as far as centering and then pulling up a small cylinder.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna show you guys how we can combine our slab things with our thrown things, okay? And I need to set us up first, and then we're gonna kind of come back to it. All I'm gonna do is just for the bottom. This is not going to look like a very skilled like thing. It's literally, can you center the clay? Okay, good, you're done. Like that's what we're going for. So I'm gonna make like, I don't know, yayish bowl. Sounds good?
Good.
Okay, slap it down. I have my 12 steps to throwing success, which is first, clean wheel, second, sealer base. Get your butt nice and close up to things. Arms in. There is, okay, side note, autistic side note, dinosaurs. There is a good thrower among the dinosaurs, and it is the T-Rex. You need to T-Rex yourself in. If your arms are, this is not about how many push-ups you can do, anything like that. This is all about how we use leverage, right? I cannot do a push-up, and it's scary, but I can throw 50 pounds of clay. And that is not because of any of my arm strength, but because I know how to use my body leverage to use this, right? So if you find yourself struggling, if you're like, oh, my arms are sore, what are you doing? Okay? So we add some water. I'm gonna have my wrists together. All of my pressure is gonna be on the inside part of my hand, and then also a thumb over the top. The red on me is not blood. It's the other place. So wrists together, thumbs down. I'm putting my hands out just so you guys can see that that's not the thing that I needed to use. Right? We just push forward and down at the same time. You don't push down and then it flies off. Right? So you have to push down and forward, and you just get it so that it's close. Right? This is like the compression part. Then we're gonna move over to the centering kind of pass, and this is where I'm going to use this, my left hand. I'm using this as leverage, okay, and I'm going to push with my body, okay. I am not going to separate because I am a T-Rex, okay, and I'm going to just push forward and lean into that, right, and it's really important that you have this. If you draw a little line here, that needs to go right into the middle. That needs to be pointed in the middle. What I watch so many beginners do is that they go over to the side like this, slowly migrating, and now you're pushing on the squishy bits. And that's not helpful, okay? I need to be right here, lined up with it, okay? Then my top one, we're gonna do some karate chop, just one chop, not multiple chops. Push your hand into your left hand, okay? Keep this all locked in. And I line up my knuckle right over the middle, and I just push down. Okay, if we've watched, how many of us have either watched and or participated in Tai Chi? Yeah. So, lots of slow, nice movements where we're not scaring the clay. Okay? Because if I do this, and I make a quick adjustment, not centered. But if I come off slow, 1, 2, 3, oh, everything's okay. Right? So no fast movements, no quick adjustments. Everything should be just the nice, like, smooth flow. Okay? Then, again, I'm going to make my little bowl plate thingy. So I'm just going to flatten this out. I'm going to establish my inside, like, shape. Yeah, rubber or wood doesn't really matter. Really when it comes to ribs, it's like, is that the shape that you want? Okay, cool, use that. My least favorite rib is the metal one because that just cuts you. And then a needle tool existed. I'm gonna find it. I did find it. Then I'm just gonna cut this part like straight. Okay, so really guys, this is all like, there's the throwing skill that you need for that.
So Laura, is it time or the amount of clay that you didn't need to cone?
So the clay is like right out of the bag, so that's one thing. And it's pretty already like consistent. Most of the time, so I cone my clay up and down if it is the recycled clay, because there's fun things to be found in the recycled clay. Like screws, like weird, I found a couple of ribs, you know, weird things. So that clay I do, but this, the stuff that's right out of the bag, unless it's porcelain, like, that's already gone through a de-airing process, and, back to the part where I'm lazy, I don't want to. So I don't, and lo and behold, everything's fine. When I cone, a lot of times it'll be something that's recycled, or I have, like, I can feel kind of inconsistencies, because it works as another way to wedge on the wheel, right? So if I feel like the clay is not, like, if you've ever gotten that, like, weird little, like, wobble that you can't get rid of, and you're like, what is that? Okay, then I'm like, let me just cone it up and down, let it forget its memory, and then it, like, goes better. Does that kind of make sense?
So then you also don't wedge the clay right out of the bag?
No, because again, I don't wanna.
Me neither, but I was taught to.
Right? Again, right out of the bag, it has already just come from a major machine. Now, if it was porcelain, oh my God, the porcelain has a way to, like, of just settling, and being kind of hard, stiff on the outside and squishy on the inside. Porcelain, I got a wedge. There's just no getting around it. And then sometimes all it is that I just shake the bag up. And by shake the bag up, I mean, like, I throw it down on the ground multiple times and multiple, like, things. And then the clay is, like, feeling good again, right?
Okay.
It's ready to wake up and do its thing. But if I'm making clay, or if I'm recycling my clay, oh my gosh, wedging. If I'm putting color in my clay, oh my gosh, wedging. There's so many times where I really do need a wedge, but I am a very lazy wedger. So if it was, like I said, recycled, yes, I have to wedge it. If it's out of the bag, somebody else, we paid good money for that clay. Why should I have to wedge it? Okay.
Okay, got it.
Right. Okay, so let's go on a journey over to the slab roller, my friends. Like, yeah, that doesn't magically show us anything, so.
You're taking the top of the flat piece and pushing it aside.
Yeah, so now if you were to come up to it, you wouldn't see, the seam is gone. Okay, so that was the important bit, is like, so it wasn't just, the tray that I made wasn't just flat. It had a little bit of a curve for it. And you can have even more of a curve depending, and just know that you're gonna come back and trim this down, right?
How did you hold that?
I don't understand how the seam at the bottom held when you're pushing against it.
Okay, so on the inside, I really wish I had like a Sharpie. We have dry erase, anything right here. Okay, cool. So, on the inside wall, like, here's my clay, right, on the outside, and then here's my little, like, swoop of clay down here. And so I very purposely made sure that I had this bit right here, that I can then go and push into that, right? And I don't need to worry too much about it, because I'm gonna trim more off later, okay?
What position was
It's the seam. I don't understand why the seam is holding
Why this seam is holding? Or why, which seam is holding?
at the bottom.
At the bottom.
The
It's,
seam at the bottom.
because
the
this is
vertical seam,
thick.
The vertical seam.
Yeah,
Seam at the bottom.
this part right here.
Because it's thick.
Because it's thick, so it's wet clay right here. So now I have, this whole part is a connection, and I pushed it in from the side already, right? And there was water in between, and so we're very wet. So just by pressing together and doing a little wiggle and stick, like, it's already, I could pull on that wall and the whole piece would come up. But then this part, I had to push in using my,
Oh, I know what you're doing.
using this guy. I'd come in and I was like, right? Does that make a little more sense? Okay. Yeah, so right now that inside seam is way more kind of rounded, okay? Now, I'm gonna take this guy. So because we have the texture on the outside, we can't touch the outside. So I just have to do something with this hand, which is gonna be hold this hand, because what else am I doing with my life? Okay, and I'm gonna go down to the bottom again, make sure that that inner curve is like everything that I always wanted. Okay, that's feeling like good. Now my top is garbage, so let's work on that. So this is why I didn't care about my line before, because I'm gonna go back with my needle tool, take that part off, find my magic sponge, and I'm just gonna kind of rethrow just that top lip. Because remember, our other super cool trick is you make the rim look thin and everything looks thin. Until you pick it up.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have some like home security systems too. You know, because you can pick it up and you can hit it against things. I did have a student that he actually was robbed, and he did use his very heavy pots. So his pots became evidence. It was effective. Okay, and then that's like literally, oh, I'm almost done. We're at this part now. I have to let this set up. So we'll set this over to the side. Yeah.
I happen to notice the outer seam is starting to just separate.
Yeah, it does. And so worst case scenario, again, I'll just go back and be like, not a problem. But that's like I said, that seam does start to pull apart. And I'm calling that a feature. So all of these have a seam. All of these have a seam, and a lot of times when I make mugs and stuff, I'll either decide that I like the seam and I want to show it off, or I put a handle and cover it up. But all of these guys have a seam, but once you get the glaze on it, like it's really not that noticeable. I think this technique works the best with texture because the texture just kind of like, yeah. Now, the only time that split actually becomes a problem is when the light comes through. Right? That's a problem because that's when we need to, but even then, hey, like you just grab some clay, put some clay there. What hole? I didn't see a hole. Yeah. And you didn't see a hole either. Right? Okay, so we're gonna set that guy aside. I'm gonna undercut him. We'll set him aside. So this one had a really heavy curve, right? So it was thrown up to like here, and the wall was on there. And then I trimmed off everything else. So a whole chunk of this is gonna go away, right? It's gonna look. This is gonna look like this. Okay. The thing I love about it is that it's this combination. Because people get hung up on like, oh, I'm a thrower, I'm a hand builder. But that's kind of like saying like that you only use the power drill in the like shop. And I'm like, but there's so many other tools. Like there's the table saw, that does some cool things, right? So this is just one of the tools in there. And this tool is very good at making round things. So when we want to make round things, I'm like, oh my gosh, let's go use the round thing tool.
Do you want to dry this now with a dryer or outside?
Yeah, I'll probably hit it. I brought a dryer, but I'm gonna show you some other things because I wanted to show you these. Like, let's see, what time are we working on? Oh, I didn't set a timer. Now I'm totally lost. We hit another
hour left.
Okay, yeah. So we're. Oh my gosh, I'm on schedule.
I have a question on the. Does the wheel always turn counterclockwise? Or?
There are wheels so this wheel only turns counterclockwise. There are a lot of wheels that do both clockwise and counterclockwise. And the interesting thing about that is that it isn't a lefty-righty thing. Because this whole process is ambidextrous, right? You're using both hands all the time, doing whatever it is that you need to do. It has to do more regionally, like where did you learn? Right? So if we learned over in Europe, in Asia, then we would be going clockwise. But because we're in the US, we're like, no, no, no. Not only must we stay with the with imperial units, we can't go to metric. And we have to be counterclockwise. But I can throw either direction. Oddly enough, I feel like I get dizzy going the other direction because I'm just so used to that sort of like little potter's nod. of following the tilt. But yeah, so there's kind of our simple little thing. So, Pat, so I'm gonna set this aside, and then if I'm really good, and I don't know if I'm really good, but if I'm really good, we'll have time to trim this today, okay?
You let it set up to trim?
Yeah, I do need to set it. Now, I could probably hit this with a heat gun for about 5-10 minutes, and then trim it. So we might go in that route, or I might get somebody to.
Could somebody set this up with a fan?
Yeah. As long as it's rotating, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is there a rule of thumb how thick you would need?
A rule of finger. I love my finger thickness.
Again.
I do really like the finger thickness, but I do change it according to what it is that I need to do. Yeah, so depending on, like, cause this one I definitely had, cause this is where that finger thickness is coming from, is that I generally divide it in half, and then that creates my foot ring thickness that I want for my foot ring. But you don't have to put a foot ring on the bottom. This is using that same technique, but not throwing anything. This is just me starting off with a slab base as well as the slab sides, and then I just put it over onto the wheel. This process, on a side note, this process is not as friendly with porcelain. I have a much harder time with the porcelain because the porcelain has feelings about things. And it'll dry so much quicker too. So this is definitely not something that you want to do over a couple of days. This is a work wet kind of thing.
Yeah, you say the bottom is flat. You cut the slab as a circle and put it on.
Yes.
On the back.
Yeah, and I actually just took the form first, put it down, and I do have a video of me making this exact cup, like online too. But it's just a soft slab. I put it down, cut it out, connected the base, then put it on the wheel, shaped it, right? And so one of the things I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about is like, cause this wheel thrown slab kind of stuff is really great. But I mean, slab work I think is really great too, just because you can make whatever sort of shape that you want. Literally all this is that I put 2 slabs down, cut out this shape, and then stood it up and made a little oval shape in between. Squish. Like this is all that's happening. This one is also slab and then thrown. And then I actually threw the top piece, right? Okay, so here's my question. Do we want to go into just some basic throwing and centering techniques at this point while we're waiting for that other one to like dry?
Yeah, could you just show, when something starts to go wonky, then how you correct it?
Something going wonky. Okay, let's have fun on the wheel, and I'll set a timer. My favorite things that I do is my rewind technique.
Rewind, absolutely.
Because when you find your wire cutter, oh, it's in the bag. Because when you're throwing, especially when you're teaching people how to throw, oh my gosh, so many mistakes, and you're like, oh, but I'm running out of clay. It is possible to rewind it. I don't teach beginners how to do it because they end up spending too long on the clay anyways. I think one of the biggest secrets to success is don't spend more than 10 minutes on that sort of centering and creating your cylinder. More than 10 minutes is like, what are you doing? The clay doesn't want to be that wet. Like water breaks down the clay. Just need to make it rounder. Okay, so let's start, we'll start bigger and then we can go kind of smaller. So, clean base, seal my base, have T-Rex thoughts. water down over, so that pressure on the top of my thumb as well as on the heels of my hands. Really great. You just want to have enough water that it's not sticky. Okay. Okay, locked in, pointed in at 12 o'clock. When I get larger, I will actually lock my pinky in and then use my arm. I think the latest thing that has been going around the internet is like people are like, oh my gosh, you can make it super flat with a dowel. My arm is a dowel. I come pre-equipped. So what I'm doing is I have, if you guys notice, I have my elbow over in on my leg, and then I have this part right over the center, and then I have it locked into my pinky. And then I just kind of push down and in. So this isn't a lot, that's not, I didn't have to push hard. This is my point. Okay, now you go in and you go all the way down to the bottom, and then you're like, oh no, I've gone too far. Right? So this is also something that we can fix. Again, I don't show my beginners because they spend way too long fixing and not enough time practicing on going through the steps. Because the best thing to do is always to just go through the process as quickly as possible. I try to keep people at a 10-minute timer, and then my second level students, I get them down to 2.5 minutes per piece. And then if I'm doing it, I can do it in about a minute or less. Because, again, what are you doing? So what I'm doing right now is I'm guiding that clay back into the center, pushing down and in, and also having my finger at kind of an angle. So as I'm pushing in, it's forcing it forward. So now I have that clay back. Then just by pushing down on the outside and kind of having based off of the angle of this hand. So this is my brute force hand, right? This has all of the power of my body behind it. Okay, having this lined up and locked into your body, super important. When you push forward, it's pushing forward with your body. I tell people to push forward with their belly buttons, right? So you would just do this versus this, right? Because we watch all these people do this, right? And that's, as soon as you see that, that's because we've lost our T-Rex vibe. And you can see how that angle, all of a sudden that clay is coming up in the middle. Yeah? So by applying that pressure and then angling this, it's forcing the clay to go in, and then as it's trying to like find a place to go, now it's going up, and it's curving back in around. So it's making it push up from the center.
Do you ever reach a point where you hold the clay?
Oh yes, 10 minutes. Yeah, no, 10 minutes. I mean, it's really, this is one of those things where clay has both taught me and not taught me patience. Not taught me in that sometimes I just refuse to learn. Right. I don't, because I know better, and I know that I either need to, like, so if you're working on something and it's getting worse instead of better, chances are you need to walk away and let it set up and let it think about its life for a little bit and then come back later after everything's evened out and you don't have that soft squishy spot next to this really hard spot, right? Have a chance to let it like kind of fuse. And again, you think about your life and my life. But working on the wheel, we're constantly adding water to this, and water breaks down clay. And so the clay doesn't really want to play with you for that long. So, and then if I'm working like with sections or something like that, then it's something where I'm like, oh yeah, I can work Sectionals I think are great because you're working on a size and scale that you feel comfortable at, but then you can stack your comfort to create much larger pieces, right? So you make one piece and you're like, okay, I can work with maybe 5 pounds of clay. Wow. And that'll be okay, right? But you needed 18 pounds to make your big pot. So but you just keep working at those little 5-pound increments and then you can stack them on top of each other to build them, right? Right, yeah, whatever. You just trust me. So the other things that we can kind of do is throwing off the hump is another one that I really like. This is where I get my level 2 students, they have to do 25 pieces an hour and I show them how to throw off of the hump. Right, then we can put a little swirly in there. So here's your key feature for throwing off the hump. Is you take our wooden knife. Now if you're really cool, you have the wooden knife that has the string on the end, and then you're fancy, and I'm jealous. Yeah, it's super great. So I'm going to go down a little bit lower than what I need. I'm going to cut almost all the way through. And then ba-bam, and then ba-bam. Right? Now the trick is, can you do that again? This is what I like about throwing off of the hump is that you don't have to recenter the whole thing every time, and you actually don't even care about what's going on down there. If I'm throwing off the hump though, I'm using my hand as the measurements. So I'm thinking about like, yeah, I went about that far down, okay, cool. There's my little like volcano. Now I'm gonna lift. Okay, so that little wobble that got in there, which I'm like, close enough. Super precision. Okay, not too bad. Like, I got a B.
Rate yourself.
We'll give it a B+.
Right. I gave myself a B, and maybe I should give myself a B like minus because it's not like my base isn't as thick. I went a little in on that. Okay, so things go wrong. Tell me, my friends, what are some of, like, how many of you are having issues with, like, centering? Like, you're like, I don't even know how. None. 1. Okay. 2-ish. Okay. How about coning? Coning. Who knows what coning is? Okay. Cool. Okay. So let's talk about how, like, if we have that little lump that just doesn't want to go away because you're trying to do your centering thing and let me be bad at it. Okay, look, guys, all I have to do to be bad at it is to pretend not to be a T-Rex anymore. And lo and behold, I'm bad at it. Pretend to be a T-Rex. And then it's not even about, your wheel speed is really good, this is really good, right? It's always about structure. It's always about kind of having a support system. I love to talk about community and community building, but also just even within the community of your hands. If your hands are working independently, they're all by themselves, but they're so much stronger together. Okay? But let's say I have that like little wobble that I can't get rid of, so we can cone. Now notice how if I just by pushing in at the 6 o'clock point and the 12 o'clock point, so I'm pulling back at 12 o'clock and pushing forward at 6 o'clock. Like, if you've ever watched like potters in England and stuff, a lot of people will throw over on this side of the wheel, right? because this point and this point are our two strongest points. They're the points where we can either just pull or we can push, right? This, now I'm counting on arm strength, and I've divided my forces, like we don't have nearly as much, like, but here I have my whole body weight in leverage, okay? So all I'm doing, I wasn't trying to lift the clay up. All I had to do is swish it, and then it goes up, right? Then bringing it back down. So as I bring it back down, I'm gonna keep my hands together again. I'm gonna push down, and you can you guys can see it really well, where there's this little like curve to it. That's actually wedging the clay, and it's folding over, right? So that's helping that process. So if you have reasons to wedge, is specifically because your clay is not consistent, like you have little like wet spots next to dry spots, that kind of stuff. Okay, let's see, other tricks.
Well, actually, so if you, I produced some wonky pots. So, let's say you produced this.
Okay.
How would you fix it?
How would I fix it?
That pot right behind you on the floor, Pam.
The white plastic.
The one with white plastic in it.
Well, here's
I
another.
like you.
I like you too.
So, okay, thank you. Okay, so if you're ending up with this sort of thing, wonky top, really thin sides, not really even. Okay, so first thing, let's address the uneven like walls. Your walls are becoming uneven, like if you have thick wall, thin wall. That's because we didn't get the hole in the center at some point in time, okay? A lot of times, so either it wasn't centered to begin with, or as you put the hole in, it got off center. It's because you didn't have enough water, okay? This is the one time where I'm like, no more water. You should use more water. The rest of the time is no more water. This time is, no, more water, okay? If it drags at all, it will go off center. Now, if it does go off center, here's one of the things that you can do to fix it. I like to, so from that same hand position that I had over here, I popped my right thumb in over the top, and I'm pushing it down over the top, because let's, garbage. And guys, you know how you make it awful? You wiggle too fast, right? You do not have your Tai Chi. This is a dinosaur. A T-Rex doing Tai Chi is the right thing. But I have so many people where they're constantly like, oh, just let me fix it. And it's, right, and we get, and that's not what we want to do. We're gonna focus. We're gonna hold our hands steady. Our only thing is to just push forward and push down. That's all we need to do. Okay, so I'm going to push forward and I'm going to push down. I'm not wiggling my hands around. I'm dragging my hands through the center. Again, working my hands together. Okay, so it got a little bit wobbly right there. I'm going to let that wobble a little more. Okay, because I needed more water. So I can fix that again by pushing down with my right hand, with the thumb, this little section here, right? It's like a little arch, and that arch is pushing down, and it's pushing it down into the heel of my left hand. Okay, now, because this is all about having not too much friction. You can have more friction kind of when the walls are thick, but then their walls get thinner, and so then we end up with this, right? We do that, and then oh Laura, right? And part of what happened is as you're taking your hand off, like, so I watch people all the time glide their hands over the top of it. So again, we're gonna push this back down. So what did I do? What happened there?
T-Rex.
I T-Rexed it, I locked in, and I had my pressure down and forward again. So I went back to that kind of coning sort of volcano stage, right? Now, the lifting, so first of all, make sure that you have plenty of water when you're opening it up. Second, as we are lifting, what a lot of people are doing is they're trying to do this. You're trying to feel like how we normally feel thickness as we go and we touch things like that, yeah? Mm-hmm. We are learning a new way to do this in that we are learning how to feel thickness like this. Okay, now it's going to be easier to feel thickness if your hands are touching. I have a lot of people trying to do this right off the bat, and that's going to be harder. So have your hands touch. Okay, and then we're going to practice. Now, as we're going, this is not about a continual pressure. This is actually about we're going to go in, and then we're going to go up. So if you're ending up with these little things like this, that means that we're going as opposed to the in and up, right? And most likely you are trying to control it by touching more space, right? We think if we touch more that we have more control. No, no, no. We need pinpoint pressure so that we can control that one spot and make sure that spot goes in the right spot. And the wheel spins, so you don't have to, right? And then as the wheel is going around, you're taking care of each little spot in a row, going up, 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 up. Right? Not trying to control the whole thing all at once, because that turns into a whole bunch of friction, and now all of a sudden the clay's going to argue with you. And then, yeah, it's just, the relationship's going to go downhill.
Is there a difference in the speed?
Okay, really excellent question. The speed changes as I get wider, okay? But the speed of the clay moving between my hands does not change. That's my goal, is to keep the speed between my hands the same the whole time. So watch this. If I put a piece of clay here versus a piece of clay here, which one can we track easier?
The center one.
Right. And that's because that center one is moving slower than that outside one. But the wheel speed is going the same. But that outside piece is going faster. Right? We can see it happening. We don't have to understand it. We can just see that it's happening. Okay? So as my piece gets wider, I need to slow this down so that I can maintain the same speed of the clay moving through my hands. That's my goal. Okay? So the wider we get, the slower I need to kind of go. But it's still moving through my hands in the same speed. I think it's really helpful. Really helpful techniques are close your eyes while you're throwing. Your visual information is telling you a whole bunch of things that's not really helpful. Your eyeballs are used to being in charge, and they're very bossy, but they don't actually have any of the information that you need, which is what your hands are telling you. So closing your eyes is going to make it so that you now are focused more on what you're feeling and less on whatever your brain is telling you. Okay? So when we come back to that lift, one of the important things is we're coming in from the outside at 3 o'clock. Notice my hands are pointed again into the center. We want to pinpoint pressure. Now, it doesn't matter what your pinpoint pressure is coming from. It can be a knuckle. It can be like your fist. Guys, I can throw with my feet too. I don't really like it, but I can do it. It doesn't matter. We just need pinpoint pressure.
I have a video of Laura throwing.
Whoa.
You were in one of the classes. I did it for my class this semester. No, like I told my class if they did all of their like written assignments, that if everybody did it, that I would throw with my feet. I don't have to throw with my feet. It exists on the internet.
Really?
It does. It's on my Instagram actually, but you have to scroll for a while.
All right. One of our Tuesdays or Thursdays, we'll put it on the screen.
None. None. And you know what? It's a really good stomach workout. But watch, so guys, watch as I push in like that. I really establish that wall first, and then I bring it up. And I'm just touching with the tips of my fingers, right? Yeah, right over at that little 4 o'clock point, because I want to push in from the side. Okay. Now, if you're throwing, and then you get, let's see if I can do it.
Twist?
Yeah. You want to George Orr it. This is happening because I put, did you notice what I did to make that happen? I grabbed it, I put on more pressure, and lo and behold, this little space here that was a little thinner started to collapse. Okay? Now, can I fix it? I don't know, maybe. Let's see. So I'm going to try to bring it back in again. Go back over the edge, find myself, my magic grid. I want this one. If I want to make something straight, oh look, use the straight thing. You want to make a circle, use a circle thing.
Technical terms.
Yeah. I thrive on technical terms. Like the doohickey and the whatchamacallit.
I have one of those.
Right?
How would you color that in?
Very carefully. So as long as I still have some thickness on the rim, so here's what happens to a lot of people here. Let me do this. This, right? So part of where that problem is coming in is that you're just continuously bringing your hands in, and then voila, look, eventually the clay doesn't get to be there anymore. Okay, so ways to go about fixing this. First of all, don't try to hold on to everything. Guys, just cut it off. So, needle tool, pull it in, slowly drag, lift, oh great, good. Now I can come back to here and I can thicken that a little bit. So when I'm trying to bring things in, I don't try to make a big pot, a big round pot and go out and then bring it back in. I make a tall cylinder and then I make it bulge out, right? If you make your walls really thin, it's very hard to bring those back in. So leaving your lip just a little bit beefier can really help in terms of bringing it in like that. Right? And it's always a little bit of an inward and upward lift. Okay, let's see. Other weird things. I mean, all of the things that Pat made, besides for like that first one, that this one, I would be like, yeah, I can totally go back and fix. Actually, we can fix this one too. Yeah, we can fix it. So let's play around with some trimming then, yeah? Or do you guys want to?
Yeah, let's play around with some
Trimming.
Yes, they are leather. Well,
Let's see if I can get these little guys off. Okay, so this is a little rough, but that's okay. He hasn't had a chance to like go into the world yet, but we're thick enough that we can kind of play around with this. So if I'm looking at a pot that has some issues, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with whatever we didn't really deal with before we took it off the wheel. Ideally, we do this before we take it off, but we didn't. Because sometimes when we're brand new, we're just excited. So I'm gonna try, I'm not gonna get this like centered, but I am going to find the middle. I'm gonna work with that. And then I'm gonna level this guy off. Am I stuck? Okay, so I did the top, I always do that top upside, blah. I'm gonna do words. I always do the right side up first if I have to do anything. If I don't have to, I don't want to, because back to the lazy part. Because I'm impatient.
might have gotten a little over dry.
No, it's fine. We're good. What tools did I bring for myself? I brought this one. I brought the blue one. Oh good, it's working great, guys. Both. All of the above. I'm kind of trying to decide like how do I want to deal with this? Because I centered it to the center there, But I think because my wall is thin over here, I'm actually gonna center it to the brim of this. Yes, this is gonna work out good. Speed is your friend. Go fast. Reasons why I don't like trimming right side up is because it's stupid. Because all of the clay goes right into the middle. And I hate that.
Do you usually trim on top of a bat?
No. But you guys have your bat pins like in there, so. I don't want to hit my hand on it. It hurts. Okay, so that's already looking way better, yeah?
Yes.
This is why I tell all of my students, don't judge their little pieces until later. Okay, so super important bit, my friends, is to keep your hands steady. If you follow the wobble, it gets more wobbly.
Any grace to control that?
Yeah, so I'm holding this like with a death grip, really tight, and then I'm also pushing it against my fingers so that I'm not pushing, because it's not about the pressure on the piece. I actually want the piece to come out and hit my tool. Oh! And then you catch it. Nice. That's good. I meant to do that.
Other than a demo, was it really worth doing this?
No. No, but when you're first learning and it took you like 2 hours, even though I said just 10 minutes. When you're first learning, I can't pull your baby from your hands, even though I'm like, guys, we could have it be reincarnated and it'll be fine. So this is really accommodation for a grieving process. Okay, so now this time I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to match it to this rim. And then I don't even know, like sometimes me teaching this is actually like me like encouraging you because you're like, oh, see, I can fix it.
Yeah, right.
You can, but should you?
Right.
Yes. No. At the beginning, yes.
Right, at the beginning when it just comes down to morale.
Yeah.
Then yeah. If this is what you need to go on, then let's do it. But do I think that this is like the most efficient use of your time? No.
No.
Oh shoot, I bumped it off center. Oh, good. I still, like, sometimes I'm good at tap centering, sometimes I'm not. But if my piece is wobbly, then that means that I just have to do it by hand. It's my least favorite activity.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like, if you, because really when it comes down to it, as you get better, you're going to be able to throw a new piece quicker than you would take to trim to fix this. And that's what most of this is. I mean, honestly, this is where I feel, okay, so I do a kids class over the summer, and it's just 2 weeks. The kids have literally, it's an hour and a half for 4 days of wheel. And by the 4th day, they can all make a cylinder on their own.
Wow.
Without like help. But that's because the 3 days prior, they were garbage at it, and they were fine with it. Because they just went through the process. And also I can yell at them and be like, stop working on that, and then they'll listen. But my adults, they just go hide it over in the corner, and they say, Laura, I'm not working on it, I swear. asking me questions. Then, Laura, is this done? Is this okay? And then I tell them 5 things to fix, and they're like, I'm sorry, I didn't actually mean to ask you. Key thing whenever I'm working on this stuff is it's all about paying attention to what your interior shape is. When I'm throwing, I'm always thinking about my interior because I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna match my exterior to my interior. Yeah? Then we'll put a cute little foot ring on the bottom.
So now you have to save all those. Yeah, now I have to take those over to the wheel and trim them. Now that you've worked out.
Right? So that one before where we were like, what did you do? You're like, let's see, like maybe this funky one. Alright, so basically the things that I can't fix it if you don't put a bottom on it. Like if it's a flower pot, it's a flower pot. I mean, technically I could put a slab on the bottom, but oh my gosh, you guys, at this point, please just make another one. Like, so if you have uneven walls, like, yeah, we can kind of like fix that in the trimming process as well. It would require us to center it to the most important part about all of this, and when you're trying to fix it, is how you center it on here. And that's the least fun part, and the part that you should spend the most time on is making sure that your piece is appropriately centered on the wheel, right? So this guy, because it's already like, is it stuck? No, not stuck.
So Laura, do you measure the floor thickness before you get started?
If I'm smart. I didn't like really remember on this one, so I could have gone more on this one.
Yeah.
But you know, this one has very thin little floor. Before you start, you want to take a really good look at your interior and your exterior, where your walls are thick and where they're thin. Basically, if your walls are thin, that's the spot where you center to the thin spot. Okay, so if it let's say it gets thin right here, okay, I'm gonna pick this spot as the spot to like center, because this whole thing not center, but we have to choose a point. Same thing for this one. Initially I had centered it to the center of the piece, but then I moved it over to center it to the rim. And that, because remember, that whole thing was like woo, right? And it's not so, it's got a little woo, but way less woo. Okay. So this guy, if there's any adjustments that I can physically make, so there was like little dents and stuff, can adjust that first. Essence of, when I'm doing it right side up, it's just essence of water.
Are you just kind of guessing for the middle then?
No, I have to go in and try to center it, and this is where using my little needle tool. So as the piece hits on the inside, that means that's the part that's sticking this far in. So I need to push that way. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so that's like kind of going all the way around. We're a little wobbly anyways, so we're not going to worry too much about it. But that feels good. I'm getting the line relatively even all the way around. Now, figure out what I did with my trimming tool. Okay, so guys, watch. As I hold my tool, I just want it to allow to come out and hit. It's not always hitting. That's the important bit. And again, speed is your friend, because speed means that you're less likely to follow the wobble. Bill, the whole time that I'm doing this, your voice is always in my head as I'm demoing.
What is it saying?
Right now, it is a story about so the sound of the breaths. We got all whispers now.
I can't throw in those.
I know, but you know what? Having a whole classroom full of quiet wheels,
Yes.
really nice.
Oh,
But it is really I have to really focus on it when I'm at school.
I couldn't do it. I got rid of
because
mine.
I count on the sound so much. Yeah, because you can hear the speed.
With the whisper, there's no sound at all, whether you're going fast or slow. And it turned out that I and many people are dependent on that whine of the wheel to tell us what the speed is.
Absolutely.
It would be a great wheel,
Yeah,
but I
it's
just,
infinite. We have
Become
tens.
internalized after a while.
Oh no, this is a cult. You are being initiated into a cult. It is a cult of ceramics, and it'll make you spend all of your money on ceramic supplies. You will stop going to your friends and family's houses because you have to go to a studio. I mean, I find it to be a very pleasant, friendly cult.
Yes.
Right? You start to give you like. It's a whole thing, and then your family is like, no, I don't actually need any more systems.
And then they start to give it back to you.
Right?
Don't give it to me anymore.
Yeah, you know what hurts is when your mom gives you your work back. Damn mom. I think the one good side about trimming right side up is you can at least tell if you're like matching your interior wall. The other fun thing is when your walls are thick, is that you can go back and you can carve all sorts of little designs into it, right? So that thickness turns into a feature. If you have big, thick bases, oh my gosh, you can turn that into a giant, like, foot ring, right? So it's not a flaw, it's a feature, as long as you like trimming. If you don't like trimming, then it's a flaw. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back and just kind of burnish this a little bit. Yeah, it does have a thin bottom. You know what I could get away with because the clay's wet enough? It's not like, do I think this is a good habit? No. Do I think we should be doing any of this? No. But are you going to? Yes, so let's just, because we're just doing this for fun anyways.
Laura, will you be able to trim the bowl that you made earlier?
Yes, so as soon as I'm done with this one, we'll trim the bowl. So I just put more clay down at the bottom. It was wet enough. It's fine.
And mush it together.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I am giving it some good compression.
It looks so cute.
And I'm going back and compressing that center bit too, so that it's a little bit thicker. Okay, and now, like, ooh, so smooth. Right, they're all turning into little, like, shot glasses. It's not weird. I'm just trimming off this excess so that I can flip it over now. Okay, so there's our interior. This is our exterior. So now we got, and then I added some clay there, so now I have a little bit of beefiness. It's like kind of good enough. Okay, fine, I'll do it right, whatever, guys. line from here to here. So that line lets me know that I'm gonna push it in right in the center, okay? Now, you get really good and you start tap centering and then everything's like a lot faster. I am only good at tap centering when people aren't looking. If you look, then I'm like, tap centering. You just go beep, 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 beep. And it goes in the middle and then you're like, oh. Turns out you have to like practice it like pretty regularly. And I spent a long time not practicing it, and then I got jealous because our lab tech Bobby is really good at it. And then I was like, I'm competitive, but I don't want to talk about it. So I was like, okay, fine. So I went and I asked him, I'm like, okay, give me your training techniques. Which he was like, practice, Laura. I was like, fine. And then I practiced, and then I got better, and then I was like, fine, okay, I can do it. And then I made other people do it. Okay, so I got a whole bunch of clay out here, so let's have some fun with that. I'm thinking space cup. The other trick that's super helpful, you get a mirror and you put it right here, and then you don't have to like muck up your back, which I totally have done.
Laura?
Yes.
Amazon sells vanity mirrors, and they're on flexible tubes, and they cost like $9, and it's worth the money because you can move it anywhere you want. It really does help.
I'm gonna give it like a little like space collar. Right from zero to hero.
Oh.
Dude. Okay, cool. Let's trim this other guy. And then you can kind of see, so sometimes on the bottom, depending on how you set this up, there might be a gap in between the seam. Again, it doesn't matter. I think the most important part about this is to just kind of feel your walls before you start so that you have a good idea about what it is that you're trying to trim. Knowing how much clay you can take away and having a good idea about how much clay you can take away to start is really helpful.
Is that where how you would determine whether you put a foot at or something on it?
Yeah, because if you don't have enough space on there, you don't have enough clay to take away, then you can't. Yeah. So this one, I know that I'm gonna do a foot ring like kind of right around here. I'm gonna take all of this off, and we'll have that nice little like ridge like this guy. This is our end goal. to preload my pumpkins with seeds. So it was that pinch pot demo, and then he'd be like, okay, all your pots are leather hard, and then he would go and he would cut it out and carve it just like a pumpkin, but he was like, and then you have to take the seeds out, and then everyone would be like, ah. This is wet enough and not too much of a problem that I think I can get away with this guy. So that connection point, that's like happening like right over here, right? And so just even the process of kind of trimming, and then I'm gonna go back over and kind of burnish it a little bit. I haven't ever had a problem with splitting on these pieces. But what I really like about it is that it's combining things that you couldn't do on it's a lot harder to try to stamp that onto a throne piece. So anytime where you're thinking about like, oh, I'd love to decorate my slabs, or I want to have like kind of this beautiful imagery, you can do that in flat forms. So this works really well with like silk screen and that sort of stuff too. You can do that with your flat forms, and then bring it over. Because I love that combination between the hand built and the throne sort of bits. So I was having trouble keeping this tool steady, so I'm going to switch back over to this tool. If you can't keep your tool steady, move to a smaller tool as opposed to using a larger tool. Smaller. So even my smallest would be as I even go over to like kind of the point of this, or even use like one of these little tiny dudes. And I love these guys because they stay sharp. But for most people, the size and the scale that you guys are working at, you don't need the big one for much. Talk about a snowball effect. Okay, one other little trick, not necessarily that I would put this on the wall, but if you have a thick enough base, you can set up your foot ring to actually make it so that you could hang it without having to have like some weird contraption going around. And I think I have that, let's find out. Yes. I always do the outside first and then I go to the interior. Reason being is that like if I want to make some sort of adjustment, I can still do that when I'm out here, but once I've carved out the center, now I've committed to a size. So it's all rough now. Backside of my wooden rib, a little bit wet, except for this is already pretty wet. And then just going in and creating a little wedge right underneath there. That, now, all I need is a screw and I can hook it onto the wall. It's wall hanging, instant wall hanging. So for all of your kids that have to live in tiny houses, they have one cupboard, now we can put them up on the... All right, now we're gonna see how I did. Okay, that's not too bad. That feels good. Should we cut it in half?
No.
Let's do it, because I want to show you what the inside of that looks like, okay? So look, we're just touching, we're looking, we're like, oh yes, I love it. Those are these, oh, I love these marks, I love it. I love it, let's kill it. The most important thing,
Show you the
horrible.
thickness of the wall. I used to hate them. I'd get things cut down. Look at that.
Right, so this is what I was talking about, is that we're evening out that. Right? Guys, if you aren't cutting your work in half, we're not learning. So I think it's really important, like yesterday I just made like a nice, I made a bottle about that tall and we cut it in half. Which of course everyone was like, but it really, cutting your work in half really helps you in terms of learning how to do your trimming. Because you start to understand what you're feeling and also kind of your tendencies towards where you tend to leave things thick, where you're leaving them thin. Understanding, again, learning what that thickness feels like, okay? But you can also see that ridge that I created on there so that I could actually hook it onto things. But here, I'll pass around so you can kind of feel.
Put that back together.
Sure.
And the other
Okay, how are we doing? Did I do it? Did I do it?
You did.
Oh my gosh, we did it! It was perfect!